Hello everybody and welcome aboard. I am currently at Norwich Free Academy in Norwich, Connecticut on March 14th, 2021. As you can see, the beautiful campus of NFA in front of me, Slater Memorial Museum. Now, what I'm going to do today is, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm going to do it. Seems like a nice day. It's a little windy, but I'm going to do it today. I'm going to drive from Norwich, Connecticut. I am recreating a drive that I did, I would say 40 plus years ago, many times, the late 1970s, 1980, 81. I did the drive with my friends from roughly this location as a starting point. And where did we go? Well, we went to a place called the Shaboo in Willimantic, Connecticut. Technically Mansfield, Connecticut, but it was advertised as both Willimantic, Connecticut and Mansfield, Connecticut in advertisements. I'm recreating that drive today. I'm in Norwich, as I said, and that's where I lived. That's where I grew up, and that's where I lived, and that's where we always started the drive out to the Shaboo. I'm currently on Washington Street in Norwich, and I'm going to cruise down. I'll try to name the streets as we go along here. But going to the Shaboo on the weekends, Saturday night, Friday night, I got to be honest with you. I used to go to the Shaboo Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We would go there constantly. I started going there in 1978, so I missed out on a lot of the really, amazing artists pre-1978. I believe the club opened in the early 70s, maybe 71. One of the first bands that played there was Aerosmith in the beginning of their career. And as a matter of fact, the first time Aerosmith performed the song Dream On live was at the Shaboo. The Shaboo was the greatest nightclub that I've ever been to in my life, and mainly it was for the experience. It kind of made no sense. I mean, they had artists that played at the Shaboo that were national legendary performers. And the Shaboo, the Shaboo is not in New York City. The Shaboo is not in Boston. The Shaboo is not in Chicago, a major, heavily populated area. It was essentially out in the middle of nowhere in Mansfield, Connecticut, behind a shopping mall. And it was in an old factory. And you drove there from Norwich. People drove there from all over the place. I mean, I'm doing this drive from Norwich. I mean, people came from everywhere to go to this club because of the atmosphere, because of the performers that they had there. I mean, I'll list them as I go along, but the blues greats, B.B. King played there on a regular basis. Count Basie played there. Buddy Rich was there all the time. I mean, you had rock and roll legends, Aerosmith I mentioned, AC/DC played there. Dire Straits played there. I mean, I can't even, as I say, as I go along, I'll list names here and there. There's actually a face group book that I strongly encourage you to join if you've ever been to the Shaboo, and they have tons of information. There's photographs there, which are rare, but there are photographs of the Shaboo inside and out. I'm going down West Town Street in Norwich, by the way. It's 1:20 p.m. in the afternoon. Very windy day, just as a side note. But I strongly encourage you to check out the Facebook group, join it, because there's so much information there. It'll spring back a lot of memories, and maybe you can contribute photographs or, interact with people on the group. But the bands, they had rock and roll, they had blues, they had bluegrass, they had folk, they had country, they had jazz, they had, alternative, they had punk, Iggy Pop played there. Let's see, Cheap Trick, Bonnie Raitt was there all the time, Elvin Bishop was there all the time. You had local legends like James Montgomery. The guy owned the place. He would be packed to the rafters. James Montgomery. NRBQ was there all the time. Orleans, one of the great bands, was there all the time. They had, of course we all regret things. Right off the top, I'll give you my biggest regret of a show that I missed. Elvis Costello and the Attractions. The opening band was Rock Pile featuring Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds. The place was packed. There's a bootleg recording online. You can find it on that Shaboo Facebook group. But that's probably one of the most iconic shows from that era. I think that was 1978 that occurred at the Shaboo. The Shaboo had so many great shows, though. It's hard to single it out. I'll single out my greatest experience there. I saw AC/DC there, August 26th, 1978. Bon Scott as lead singer, Angus Young lead guitar, Malcolm Young rhythm guitar, Phil Rudd on drums, Cliff Williams on bass. The greatest band on the planet at the time, as far as I was concerned. They were my favorite band. But they weren't as well known in the United States yet as they were in Europe and Australia and other parts of the world. But when they played at the Shaboo, that was a game changer for me. When they say a band blew the doors off the place, AC/DC literally blew the doors off the place, and the roof, and the rafters, and the brick and mortar, and you name it. That was the most mind-blowing encounter with a band, performance with a band that I've ever seen in my life. The people in that audience, I'm surprised half of the place wasn't taken out of there in an ambulance having a heart attack after that show. It was an explosion. That's my personal greatest Shaboo show. I'll do my second personal greatest. Again, I started going in 1978, so I missed out on a lot of the greats prior. But Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler, these guys, this show was absolutely packed, sold out, probably oversold. There were a lot of people in there. I got there super early, me and my friends. And we were dead center. They didn't really have, it wasn't rows, it was tables, it was spools where they used to wire, put wire on these giant spools back in the old days. Maybe the factory that was there prior. I don't know where these spools came from, but those were the tables. And they had conventional chairs, nothing fancy. Nobody cared. It didn't matter. You were there for the performance. You were there for the atmosphere. You were there for the, your friends and the whole scene, basically. But Dire Straits, we were dead center, I don't know, 8-10 feet from the stage. I mean, Knopfler and these guys were right in front of us all night. I mean, it was the greatest sound. The band at their absolute peak. I've never seen, I've AC/DC, that's a hard rock show. That blew my mind. These guys, this was a different experience. This was clean, crystal, beautiful music. The greatest sound quality as far as note for note and just atmospheric, beautiful sound that I've ever heard in my life was the Dire Straits performance. I don't know who did the sound. I don't know who was working the soundboard. I don't know the background details on this thing. But the first note, the first chord, the audience melted. It was just unbelievable. The appreciation of the audience had for the artists, especially Dire Straits that night. Dire Straits was so happy. That band, Knopfler and them guys were smiling ear to ear all night long. That's how happy they were to be there, and that's how happy they knew they were making the audience. It was beautiful. That's another one I'll never forget that. I'm currently on Route 32 in Franklin, Connecticut, and I'm heading to the Shaboo. The Shaboo is not there. It burned to the ground, unfortunately. It closed before it burned to the ground, but the factory that housed, the location, the building that the Shaboo was in burned to the ground at some point in the early 1980s. But I'm heading to the location. I'm heading there now. I'm recreating the drive that I used to do all the time. And this is it. I was on this road. I have no idea. If I had to count up the number of times I went from Norwich to Willimantic, Mansfield, Connecticut, to the Shaboo, I'd lose count, or I'd get the count wrong, because I don't remember. Some of these shows, this is back in the day when 18 was legal drinking age. People partied vigorously at the Shaboo. I never saw any trouble up there personally. I never saw any fights. It was just people. Everybody got along great. People were there for the entertainment, for the performances, for the legendary shows that were there all the time. And half the people there were like stunned in awe, just looking around saying, what in the world is this band doing playing in the middle of nowhere? It kind of made no sense. It was like you were sitting there in disbelief as you were watching, the Cars, as you were watching, Muddy Waters. You were watching Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Journey. Let's say you were into jazz. You go up there, Weather Report was playing there. Think of a genre. The Shaboo had it. Shaboo had comedians. They had Robert Klein in his younger days, in his prime, was up there. So many bands that are listed. It's on the Facebook group. There's a list. There's a big master list. And when you read through the performances and the artists that played there, Charlie Daniels Band, I think he played there for 3 or 4 days. Howlin' Wolf, In the early days of the Shaboo, before I was lucky enough to be, I wasn't old enough to get in. I mean, I know some people used to slip in there when they were maybe 16, 17 years old, maybe a fake ID, or maybe they just looked old enough to get in. But I never did that. I was never lucky enough to, I didn't know about the Shaboo probably until I was 18 and I was able to go out to nightclubs. But, you know, it's funny. When I first went to the Shaboo, I saw 2 shows back to back. One night, one the next. One was the Ramones, and I'm talking 1978 Ramones, original band, height of their powers, a packed club, and absolutely wild. Probably the greatest. I talked to somebody that's in a band that opened for the Ramones several times, and this gentleman told me that he saw the Ramones, close to 30 times, considering the fact they opened for him and they were big fans. But he said the greatest Ramones performance that he's ever seen, and it means something, was at the Shaboo, 1978, the one I was at. There's a really good photographer by the name of Tom Hearn. He took a few photos of that show. They're on the Shaboo group, the Shaboo Facebook group, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at those photographs. But anyways, I saw the Ramones one night and Robert Gordon with Chris Spedding on guitar the next. 2 nights in a row, okay? Robert Gordon, I may as well have been seeing Elvis. That's Robert Gordon in his absolute prime. Packed club. Again, 2 nights in a row, my mind was blown. I was 18 years old. That's when I started going to the Shaboo all the time, on a regular basis. I would go up there for anybody. I didn't care. The name. One night I went up there to see Judas Priest, and they didn't show up, okay? We got a free t-shirt out of the deal, but I think they gave us free tickets to a show, and we ended up, me and my cousin, okay, one minute we're getting ready to go to a heavy metal Judas Priest concert at the Shaboo. We opted to go a few days later, or not that far afterwards. We saw Aztec Two-Step. I mean, they were basically a folk band. Great band, duo, 2 guys. But that's the diversity of the groups and the things that we were going to see at the Shaboo. It was just, it defies anything you could ever imagine. That something like that will never happen again. It's impossible. I mean, for example, when I saw AC/DC, the guys were 4 or 5 feet in front of me. They were right there. The lead guitarist, Angus Young, he jumped on our table. I mean, that's just not going to happen anymore, folks. We know that. By the way, I'm entering Lebanon, Connecticut right now. I'm technically on Windham Road, Route 32. Speed limit is 50 miles per hour. But I do regret, how can I regret it? I was too young, but it would have been nice if I was able to see all the blues legends that played there. I would have loved to see, I saw Muddy Waters, I saw James Cotton, I saw some, I didn't miss everything, but I would say the mid-70s was kind of the golden era of the blues. Early to mid-70s was the golden era of the really hardcore blues, American blues. Artists would come up and play at the Shaboo all the time. I think John Lee Hooker played there like 5 nights in a row. Okay? John Lee Hooker. These are the legends that played there. And when they played there, they were 3 feet in front of you. They'd take a break, they'd go over to the bar, they'd get a drink, and you could talk to these guys. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was the most phenomenal experience I had in my life, going to the Shaboo on a regular basis. It was magic every time you went up there. You never had a bad night. It's 100% guarantee. Bonnie Raitt used to go up there and blow the doors off the place on a regular basis. I mean, Freddie King played there. Albert King played there. I'm talking the most iconic blues, legendary performers of all time in world history. He used to go to a club in the middle of Mansfield, Connecticut, out in the middle of nowhere. It just defies logic. But it happened. And the people that knew about this club, word spread like wildfire. Once bands like Aerosmith and somebody's Howlin' Wolf and these guys started playing up there, word spread like wildfire to the local colleges and local towns in the surrounding area. People would see the advertisements for the Shaboo listed in different newspapers and magazines. They had a big water tower. It said Shaboo on top of the water tower. It was kind of lit up at night. It was real nice. But the advertisements for the Shaboo were listed in the paper. There was a kind of a ink drawing of the water tower, and underneath was the list of the bands playing, in the coming weeks. And you would go in and you would just open the paper and look and see and go, good Lord. Rick Derringer is playing there Thursday, Friday night. Johnny Winter's playing there. B.B. King's coming in Saturday night. Sunday night, Buddy Rich is... guys, this is insane. I would look at the thing, I was just... my eyes were popping out of my head. Iggy Pop, they covered every conceivable genre of music you could possibly think of. Novelty act, I don't care what it was, they were there. Internationally known stars. The atmosphere in the place was very dark. I used to walk in the door, you'd give the guy your ticket or pay cash or whatever, and you'd take a right, and I always would look to my immediate right. When I walked in, there was a board, like a glass billboard with pictures, promotional pictures, or whatever, like record companies would provide, and there would be bands. I remember seeing very specifically Dire Straits when I saw that picture in there. We were all getting so excited about seeing them. But by the way, I'm going over the Frog Bridge right now in Willimantic. Back when I used to drive up from Norwich to the Shaboo, this bridge was here, but it did not have these frogs, and it wasn't in the greatest shape, by the way. Incidentally, over to my left, there's a nice park. As we enter the area down here, it says Town of Wyndham. There's a nice park to my left, and there's that big stage you see. It's called the Shaboo stage. They named it after the Shaboo. I'm on Jackson Street right now in Willimantic, by the way. But anyways, the bands, I can't stress strongly enough to join that Shaboo Facebook group, because the information you'll get is it's mind-blowing. When you see the list of bands, I'm driving, I can't read the list. I wish I could. But you look at this thing and you're going to say to yourself, wait a minute. These guys played in Willimantic? They played in Mansfield, Connecticut, behind the mall? I just shake my head. I mean, I'm like, whoa. And I kind of knew at the time when I was there personally that this is unbelievable. What I'm experiencing right now, watching Dire Straits and AC/DC and the Ramones and, all these, the fabulous Rhinestones, this great band that played there all the time, and RBQ. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm soaking this stuff in here. I'm appreciating this big time right now. This stuff just doesn't happen today, in today's day and age. I mean, it's literally impossible. This will never happen again for a variety of reasons, believe me. Okay, coming up on my left, I got to point this out. Mama's Pizza Restaurant. It's still there. We used to go before the show to the Shaboo. We would go to Mama's Pizza. And a lot of times after the show, we would go. They'd stay open real late. And it was always packed. But it's still there. There it is, Mama's Pizza right on the left. Greek and Italian food. It's real good. All right, we're quickly approaching the Shaboo. It does not take that long. Norwich to the Shaboo is not, I don't know how many miles, but it's not that far. We would talk in the car. We were very excited every time we went up here. It was the car that I recalled, the cars being absolutely packed when we drove up here. We would stuff as many people's bodies as we could into that vehicle. Okay, I just entered Mansfield, Connecticut. Technically, there's a sign back there. And I'm going to try to cover all the... I'm going to go down to the mall and drive behind the mall and point out where the Shaboo used to be. And I'll get different angles. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what to expect here, because it did burn to the ground many, many years ago, decades ago. And there is that mall, so we're going to take a look. Behind the mall, okay. The mall is to my left. It's called the Eastbrook Mall. There used to be a great record store down here. I would go down and I'd buy albums, big albums. I bought a Rick Derringer album down here, and when I was buying the album, the guy told me, he said, AC/DC is going to be playing up at the Shaboo. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Because this guy we knew each other pretty well. And he knew that I was a big AC/DC fan. So I just, I started jumping up and down and anticipating every second before I would get to see the band, which I did. All right. The Eastbrook Mall looks modernized. I haven't been up here in a long time, but it's definitely, from what it was 40-something years ago, looks like it's gotten a facelift. Okay, we're going behind So let me see here. I'm going to have to try to map this out. Right directly behind, I'm going behind the mall right now. Directly behind this mall was the Shaboo. So as we look ahead, straight up that hill, that's where the Shaboo was. Let me wind my way around here. Okay, right kind of there. Let me pull over here a little bit. Some big bulldozers and things in front of me, but right there, this camera is, I'm going to swing this thing around a little bit. I mean, there's nothing there now. It's just some pine trees, and that's where the Shaboo was, right smack there. The greatest of the greats performed there. Blondie performed. Debbie Harry and Blondie. They were right there, right at the peak of their career. Right there, right in front of us. That's where it was. Now, let me see if I can... I'm going to try to figure this thing out here. Get a lay of the land. Okay, let's see here. Keep right. I got a stop sign. I'm going to get out of the end of the road. And I'm gonna kind of turn back to get a different view of this thing. I want to cover every angle humanly possible on this. It's Conantville Road. That's the name of the road that the Shaboo was on. I'm not sure if I'm legally allowed to make a U-turn. It doesn't say no U-turn, but I'm going to do it once I get through this red light. All right, here we go. Okay. So this is it. This is our final, like, coming from Norwich. Right to the, slightly to the right was the Shaboo. Those now the pine trees are there, but that was where the Shaboo was, the big factory. There was a parking lot out in front of it, and there was also a parking lot to the left. And let's take a look and see what's up here. All right, the parking lot now looks to be, it says Eastbrook Height Condominium, so they built condos. The parking lot's kind of like right to my left there, that grass, little, looks like a little park. Okay, I'm going to turn around up here. Actually, let me sweep around a little bit. So we just got off Conantville Road, which was that's the technical road. I mean, that's the actual road that the Shaboo Inn was on. I'm on Pollock Road right now. But I'm going to turn around. I'm going to point this thing. Let me turn around this guy's driveway over here. Hopefully he doesn't mind. I'm going to turn this thing around. I'm going to point in the direction of the Shaboo. Point this camera right smack dab on where that Shaboo Inn was. And all those iconic, legendary performers went to play their music for people that drove pretty good distance to get there in many cases. A lot of people went to, like I say, there it is right in front of us. I'm going to pull up another road. The Shaboo, if it was still standing, was right there, right in front of us. I'm going to pull up this condominium thing. And what I'm going to try to do is I'll point over at the Shaboo where it was, and I'm going to read off some. Okay, I'm going to again, turn around here. Actually, let me back into this. Oh no, these are parking spaces for people that live here. I don't want to take up anybody's parking place. But let me back up. And I'm just going to kind of plant the car over here. And I have a little idea. Okay, that's where the Shaboo was, right there. All right, let me pull out my... let me see if I can get this list. I'm going to read some of the names on this list as we just kind of stand here, or stay here for a second, and look at the Shaboo. The former location of the Shaboo. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, it was open from 1971 to 1982. I'm gonna just read off some of the bands that played there. As we look over at the former location of the Shaboo with the pine trees in front of us now and the kind of the cloudy skies, a little breezy. These are some of the blues greats, and this isn't a complete list, but this is, I'm just giving you a taste here. The complete list is on the Facebook group. B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Albert King, Freddie King, Buddy Guy and Junior Wells, John Mayall, Taj Mahal, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, Lonnie Mack, Papa John Creech, J.B. Hutto. I saw that J.B. Hutto show, too. That was unbelievable. This guy was very underrated, in my opinion. Didn't get enough attention, but, man, nobody could play like him. As a matter of fact, he's on YouTube right now, live at the Shaboo. Look it up, J.B. Hutto, live at the Shaboo. It's on there now. Hound Dog Taylor, Albert Collins, Willie Dixon, Howlin' Wolf, Coco Taylor, T-Bone Walker, Bobby Blue Bland, other genres, Joe Cocker, Dr. John, David Crosby, Elvin Bishop, Todd Rundgren, Bob Weir and Kingfish, Lou Reed, Tom Petty, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, Nils Lofgren, Bonnie Raitt, Manfred Mann, Dave Mason, Charlie Daniels, AC/DC. Okay, another major regret. I'm almost ashamed to admit it. The Police. I could have went. I knew they were playing there. I didn't go. I mean, there was only maybe a handful of people there from my understanding, but if you think about it, I could have been there. Huge regret. Can't go back. Other bands, Robert Palmer, Joe Perry Project, Little Feat, Iggy Pop, Talking Heads, The Cars, The Ramones, The Dead Kennedys, Johnny Winter, Roger McGuinn, Humble Pie, Nick Lowe, Rick Derringer, Rory Gallagher, Andy Pratt, The Jags, Canned Heat, Pat Travers. I saw a lot of those bands there. New Riders of the Purple Sage, Charlie Daniels, Pure Prairie League, phenomenal Pure Prairie League. Commander Cody, Climax Blues Band, Count Basie Orchestra, Buddy Rich, Miles Davis. Yes, Miles Davis. Manhattan Transfer, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Tower of Power, Weather Report, Spyro Gyra, John Luke Ponte, Brian Auger's Oblivion Express, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, Woody Herman, Arlo Guthrie, David Bromberg, Tom Waits, Richie Havens, Jesse Colin Young, Leonard Cohen, Earl Scruggs, Kenny Rankin, the great Kenny Rankin, Janice Ian, Emmylou Harris, Doc Watson, Leon Redbone, Avalanche, phenomenal local band. By the way, they opened for AC/DC at the Shaboo that night. 8 to the Bar, Oasis, Pilgrim. These are a lot of the local Southpaw. These are locals that played there all the time. Arizona Made, Fountainhead, B. Willie Smith, Tire Biter, Gray Controversy, Little Village, Max Creek, Blue Rooster, Poussette Dart Band. They were phenomenal. Duke and the Drivers, Ellen McElwain. Martin Mull, a comedian, was there. Dennis Wilson, Peter Tork, Susie Quattro, Robert Hunter, Root Boy Slim and the Sex Change Band. I mean, Loudon Wainwright, George T. Gregory, Jerry. It goes on and on and on and on. I can't. I'm just giving you a taste, but I wanted to list some of the groups. I mean, again, at least my mind, my memory as I'm driving is you try to think of all the performances. Yeah, I saw one guy there, Greg Kinn, the Greg Kinn Band. He had a couple of really big hits in the United States, and I mean, maybe I think one of his songs went to #1 in the country, but that was just like a typical night at the Shaboo. You just kind of walk in, and who's there? The Greg Kinn Band. And you're there, you're like, wow, I mean, these guys are phenomenal. I mean, and all of a sudden, you buy the album, and you're this huge Greg Kinn fan. I never heard of the guy. And all of a sudden, I'm a huge fan. I'm listening to his 45s and his record albums, and it's just fantastic. You discovered music at the Shaboo. I mean, you grew up at the Shaboo. You became an adult at the Shaboo. You met people at the Shaboo. You learned. You absorbed some of the greatest music, in history at the Shaboo. And you saw it live in person as it was happening. I mean, I went there one night. I saw Rick Derringer. It was essentially a blizzard. There's a sign to the right, Conantville Road. That's it. The iconic Conantville Road, home of the Shaboo. I'm going to take a quick ride into Willimantic as part of this tour, just to get a little taste of the town that the Shaboo is located in. Jog some memories for some folks, maybe that don't live in the area anymore, but I'm going to take a spin down here right now. But anyways, that back there, that little area with those pine trees, was the location. That should be a national landmark, in my opinion. I mean, I would go so far as to say the Shaboo Inn. I mean, there's CBGB's, there's Max's Kansas City, there's the Bottom Line, there's all these famous, the Whiskey A Go-Go. There's all these famous, the Cow Palaces, these famous clubs all over the country, years ago in the 70s and everything. People talk about them. Oh yes, that was the greatest, and this and that. I'm going to go on a record as stating that the Shaboo is not only right in there with them guys, with those clubs. I think the Shaboo might have been better than all of those places. That's how great that club was. This isn't hyperbole. I'm not exaggerating. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever been to a performance at the Shaboo, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. If you were never there, if you lived during that era and didn't go there, you're wondering in your mind, what did I miss? If were too young and you heard about the Shaboo after it was gone, your mind is wondering, what did I miss? What was there? What was it like? It's almost indescribable. I mean, I'm trying here. But it was so unique. It was very dark. When you walked in that club, it was very, very dark. They had red lights. The place was dead dark, and they had red light bulbs hanging from the rafters. And when I say rafters, that place literally had exposed rafters. I'm not kidding. You know how they say people were hanging from the rafters? people literally hung from the rafters during shows there. The Ramones, I specifically recall people, there were pipes and rafters and people were standing on tables. It was a wild scene, but appropriate for a Ramones show. But the iconic nature, the legendary iconic nature of the atmosphere, the feel for that place, for that club, was a singular experience in the United States like no other, as far as I'm concerned. Its location, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's in the middle. You can see it. Look around me. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle. This is not a big city with skyscrapers. It's in the middle of nowhere. And all of the bands I listed a few minutes ago played there, among many others. I'm missing a lot of them. I'm just catching some of the highlights as we drive down Jackson Street in Willimantic, Connecticut, towards the heart of the city. Like I say, I'll just give you a little taste of Willimantic, the city of Willimantic, because that's where Shaboo was located. I mean, technically Mansfield, but Willimantic. And we'll take just a short cruise right up Main Street, and we'll get a look at some of the nice architecture and things. But it might jog memories for some people. People might enjoy seeing this. Again, in front of us you can see the Frog Bridge. It's kind of a cool thing they did many years ago. They put those frogs up. Frogs have masks on right now because we're going through this coronavirus global pandemic. But that's why those frogs have masks on. Anyways, I'm on Main Street right now, right in the heart of Willimantic. For people that went to the Shaboo back in the old days, this is the city. Nice town, college town. UConn is not far from here. Eastern Connecticut College is right up the road. As we cruise right down the heart of Main Street in Willimantic, Connecticut. On a Sunday. It's kind of quiet. It's a Sunday. A lot of people are home today. And some of the beautiful architecture, some of the buildings. All right. I can't go up High Street. Let's see. I'm going to take a right here as soon as I can. Let's see. All right, Eastern Connecticut State University. I'm not sure I can go on campus without... I got a camera attached to this car. I don't think... if there's security there, they're definitely going to question what I'm doing. I'll take a ride up to Eastern, because a lot of people from Eastern used to go to the Shaboo. So if you don't live in the area, well, there it is, to the right, Eastern Connecticut State University. So we can catch some of the campus up here. Beautiful older homes in Willimantic. Okay, what's this to my right? Schaefer Hall. Again, I'm going to be mindful here of... I'm going to try not to get nailed by security. For having a camera attached to my car, they might get suspicious, but let's take a ride up there. Campus speed limit 15 miles per hour. So, all right. There it is. To my right is Winthrop Hall. This is kind of a bonus for this Shaboo video. Let's see, Laurel Hall on my left. I've been up here in a while. Eastern Hall. Campus is bigger than I remember. All right, let's see here. I got a tower over there. Okay, let's see now. I want to work my way around this campus if I can, just to get you a good view of what's going on up here. At this point in time, in the year 2021, personally, my prime Shaboo years were 1978, right up until it closed. There's a better view of Eastern Connecticut State College. What's that in front of us? Let's see here. Looks like a new building. Frederick and... I'm having trouble reading the sign there. Let's see. Well, I'm going to have to pull up a little bit. But anyways, there's a good view of the campus. So all this is, I consider this bonus footage. I had not really planned on doing Eastern Connecticut State College. Frederick and Gelsey and Leslie T. Young Hall. A lot of new buildings up here. There's Allen Wood Support Service Center over there. Foster Clock Tower is the name of that big tower there with a clock on it. As we get a look down the hill here, there's a cell phone tower there. Did not see that back in 1978, I can tell you that much. No cell phones back in the old days. Let's take a cruise around the campus. Charles R. Webb Hall, Goddard Hall. I'm trying to name off some of the buildings around here. Let's take a look. Parking garages, sports center, student center, Winthrop Apartments. All right. Boy, it's getting dark. Might have a little rain coming in. All right, there's something called the Sports Center. And the place goes on and on and on. There's a big parking garage to my left. Plenty of parking. And there's some of the older buildings. I don't know how old they are. Let's see. Nejadlik Hall. Nejadlik Hall. Student Center to my right. And it just goes on and on. What is the name of this one? Ockham Hall. Boy, oh boy. This is endless up here. It's a big complex. This puts me onto Charter Oak Road. What do I have here? Facilities Management and Planning. Okay, we don't care too much about that. I mean, it's all well and good, but it's just a bunch of maintenance trucks. Let's see here. Okay, there's that parking garage. I'll just whip around the back of the campus here. called the Shakespeare parking garage. To my left. There it is. Tennis courts, basketball courts, looks like a football or a soccer field out there, baseball field in the back. Big sign right there, it says Eastern Connecticut Warriors. Alright, let's do it all here. Let's pull in the back here. I don't want to miss anything. Apparently this college was established in 1889, according to a sign back there. All right. Some of these buildings are brand new. I think the one in front of me is, that's new construction, or relatively new. As we work our way off campus. And I'm going to exit the grounds. Folks, I'd just like to thank you for coming along on this ride. I've been wanting to do this Norwich to the Shaboo, a recreation of the ride that I used to do over 40 years ago, to go to what I consider to be the greatest nightclub of its era in the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's my personal opinion. The uniqueness of the Shaboo is unmatched by any other club. The performers that performed at the Shaboo, the list, some of which I read, is mind-blowing. But it happened. Seems like a dream, seems impossible. It wasn't. It actually, all this stuff, everything I said, all the stuff I read, the names, everything, they all played there. But I wanted to do this drive, and I wanted to do this for a long time. And I finally pulled it off. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the ride. And I'd just like to say, thanks for joining me, folks.